Hey, welcome everybody to the session with the Oklahoma City Thunder's Landis Tindell, Manager of Corporate Communications. I am not Landis. My name is Peter Bartel. I work for Southern New Hampshire University's Career Services team here. And you'll see my colleagues Daisy and Dana in the chat as well throughout. Landis, thank you so much for being here. He's our featured guest speaker this evening on polishing your professional portfolio. So just some housekeeping rules. We'll give Landis the floor totally in about 4 or 5 minutes. But this session is being recorded. Cameras and microphones are disabled for attendees. During the Q&A portion, there will be plenty of time at the end after Landis is done speaking to you guys. But use the chat box feature absolutely to engage with colleagues throughout and ask questions. There will be time at the end for Q&A. Submit your questions throughout. You want to get kind of towards the top of that line because we tend to ask them in the order they come in. But feel free to use the chat box for that. And then I'll also, if you prefer to like raise your hand and ask, we'll take you off mute. There's an option for that at the end, but absolutely use the Q&A or the chat box to submit any questions as the session is ongoing. Don't wait till the end to do so. Don't feel like you have to. Again, feel free to introduce yourselves. I know people are still trickling in. Welcome to the session with Landis Tindell of the Oklahoma City Thunder on polishing your professional portfolio. Yeah, introduce yourself, your name, your major, where you're from, your any creative social media or profile work that you've done. Just a way to connect with each other. So welcome to this session. I'll read our access and accommodations real quick here. Your experience here at Southern New Hampshire University is important to us. It is our policy and practice to create an inclusive and accessible learning environment. If there are aspects of this presentation's design or delivery that present barriers to accessibility, please notify the below. For online students, Online Accessibility Center by emailing oac@snhu.edu or by phone at 866-305-9430. Campus students, a Campus Accessibility Center by emailing cac@snhu.edu or by phone at 603-644-3118. And for SNHU staff and faculty, Human Resources Office by emailing hr@snhu.edu. Awesome. And make sure we'll put this in the chat too. For a future list of events listed for us, like this one, go to Handshake. You should have profiles if you're an alum or a student, and the link is right here as well. We'll put the link in the chat, but you can check out any sessions that we have set up, that we have upcoming, or employers themselves have set up that they have upcoming. So they're always posting. Dana's constantly approving for us. So good stuff there. And you, some of you I know found this event through Handshake. So good job on that. All right, so we're going to administer a poll question real quick, just to kind of gauge your level with your profile. So let me load it up here real quick. And the question is, do you currently have a completed or in progress professional portfolio? And the question you should see in the middle of the screen, so just click yes or no. And this will give us a gauge on, where you're at and where everybody else is at, and good for Landis to have as he presents throughout. So we'll leave it up there for a few more seconds. And again,
Hey, Peter, you're still sharing your screen. Sorry.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Again, the purpose of the presentation is to polish your professional portfolio, right? So kind of just to get a gauge on the starting point and where you're at. Looks like we have 24 responses, 75% no, 25% yes. So around there. So thank you guys for answering the question. Let me reshare real quick, and I'm going to introduce Landis, and then we're going to let him have the floor. All righty. And before I do that, actually, we're going to kind of reverse one. Connect with us at Career Services here at SNHU. We assist with all things career readiness related. So whether it's your resume, salary negotiation, help creating that portfolio, anything that's going to help you job readiness, career readiness, Handshake questions, we're here. COCEcareer at snhu.edu is the email, and I'll put this in the chat as well. And then 888-672-1458. And then you can see all of our social media icons at the bottom as well. All right, now we'll introduce Landis. So Landis Tindell is the manager of corporate communications for the Oklahoma City Thunder. In his role, he oversees external and internal communication strategy, media relations, the Thunder Speakers Bureau, and the Communications Internship Program. Landis is an avid member of the Public Relations Society of America, having served at the chapter, district, and national levels. In 2021, Landis was inducted into the PRSSA Hall of Fame for his service to public relations students across the country. Landis has also been honored by other organizations, twice being named in American Business Awards Communications Professional of the Year, PR News, 30 Under 30 Rising Star, and PRSA-OKC Young Professional of the Year. Landis, that's a lot of accolades. That's awesome. Landis has a master's degree in strategic communication from Texas Tech and a bachelor's in public relations from Harding University. In his free time, Landis is a chef and a food photographer, multi-instrument musician, and local trivia host. Landis is offered to share his LinkedIn too for us, so you can view that at the bottom. Absolutely connect with him on LinkedIn as well. And without further ado, Landis, we'll let you have the floor and discuss more. I'm going to unshare my screen. We'll let you have the floor to discuss polishing your professional portfolio. Thanks for joining us tonight.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. So as mentioned, my name's Landis Tindell. I've been with the Oklahoma City Thunder for about a year and a half. Before this, I was in state government communications, have some experience in education and tourism. But I've been a big Thunder fan since the team's been here in 2008. So really a dream to be able to work with the team and help communicate all of our off the court things. So we have a basketball communications department that deals with injuries and trades and stats and all sorts of stuff. And my team in corporate communication, we deal with community engagement and business communications. Like I said, things off the court. So appreciate everyone being here. Attending things like this was a big deal for me when I was in school, and hearing from people. So thank you for being here. I don't have slides or anything. I really want this to be a conversation between you guys, and anything I can help talk about. So I'll just start with in the poll. I noticed a lot of people said they don't have a portfolio, either completed or in progress. So would strongly suggest starting one if you don't have one already. It's a lot easier to keep up with it as you're going along through coursework and any professional experience that you may already have, especially for those of you who I saw are majoring in things like graphic design or writing, or I think I saw somebody say something about game art and game development. So it's hard to show those things on paper sometimes, especially game development, video production, any kind of animation stuff. You can't show that on paper. So gone mostly is the way of the printed paper portfolio that you might bring to interviews. It works some for writing and other things that can be shown in print, but strongly suggest an online portfolio. I will put mine in the chat. I'm not saying it is the end all be all of online portfolios, but it does exist, and something that I used as a platform when I was looking for jobs, and I just keep it active. And it needs some updating now, but I keep it active. I use a website called Weebly. Um, it's just it just got bought by Squarespace not too long ago. It was built originally for e-commerce, but they also had a kind of portfolio side of things. So that's what I use. It's relatively cheap. In fact, it's free to start with, to start building. There are some paid features, like if you want to embed videos instead of just linking to something on YouTube or similar things like that. Um, so online portfolios don't have to be expensive. So find something that works for you, whether that's through Wix or Weebly or WordPress or any of those other creative platforms. Um, I would say if you're able to afford such things, pay for um, something where you can take out a lot of the URL, pay for a custom domain. So, for example, you see mine right now is landistindell.com. If I don't pay for that URL, it would be something like landistindell.weebly.com. Not awful, but um, my name's pretty unique, so it was a pretty cheap domain for me to buy. Um, so come up with something professional, your name, put in a middle initial if you have to, experiment with that custom domain, see if you can find something cheaper. But would definitely recommend that just to keep long links off of things like your resume um, or whatever. I did happen to see a question pop up about something like Tumblr. I haven't been on Tumblr in probably 10 years, so I can't speak to that one specifically, but I would say also keep your LinkedIn up to date. That's what I check when I'm hiring. That's what I tell um, people like my interns or my students, and put everything on it that you've ever done. Part-time jobs, full-time jobs, education experience, volunteer experience, and then also connect um, with everybody that you have met, that you've dealt with. You should connect with people on this call and just say something to the effect of, saw you were on the call, would love to stay connected. Um, Things like that, because that builds your network. It helps connect you to industries and businesses that you might be interested in working in for the future, or connecting with. Maybe you're a nonprofit looking for grants. You might see something from somebody that works at a for-profit organization, or vice versa. You might be a for-profit organization looking for a nonprofit, a specific nonprofit. I also do a lot of event planning, so I connect with people that I hear speak all the time, and just connect with a little note to say, great presentation or whatever, because I might want to book them for events later on down the line. So LinkedIn for sure, that's free. That's number one. That can be your own professional portfolio. It's a little harder to link creative projects on there for those of you who are in graphic design or video or any of those kinds of things. But it's a place to start. And then, like I said, a lot of those websites are available to start for free, and do upgrades from there. So I do, like I said, I definitely want to leave plenty of time for questions. So if we want to start going through some of the questions that have
Yep.
happened in the chat, we can go from there.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, audience and Landis. There are a bunch of questions in the chat so far, so definitely thank you for that. The first one was from Sharon Ouellette. For portfolio names, Landis, you touched on this, but so she asked, for professional names, would you use a business name, or do you suggest using your full name?
Yeah, if you, I mean, this could go one of two ways. If you're looking into doing freelance work and something like that, definitely go with a business name. I do have, some side consulting work that I do, but it's not under a brand name. It's just my name. So, and you can always change your domain too. So if you want to just start with your name as you're, getting things set up, that's a way to get started. And if you decide that you want to switch to a brand name or you want to get into freelance work or that kind of stuff, you can switch, you can switch your domain pretty much at any time.
That's a good idea. Thanks for pointing that out. Because sometimes, depending on the type of work you're doing, it does require a change in name may be necessary, right? Or most I'll come off on camera, but most feasible, make the most sense.
Yeah.
There's a question too, Dana. Thank you for this one. With your APR certification, Landis, are there other certifications you think stand out in the liberal arts field?
I will speak to APR first. That's Accreditation in Public Relations. It's through PRSA. For those of you that are either in PR or interested in PR, the APR certification is for those who have about 5 years experience full time or more. That's not a requirement. It's just kind of a place for people to start. Thanks for linking that there. Basically, what it requires is either that you've overseen an entire public relations campaign from start to finish. So that's research, evaluation, implementation, all these things, or to have enough knowledge about public relations to write your own, to say, hey, if I was the communications person for whatever company, here's the PR campaign I would do, and writing out an entire PR campaign from start to finish. So we say about 5 years experience. I did it with about 4.5 and felt okay. Probably could have gone another year and been a little bit more, but APR for sure. I don't know that I can speak to any other specifically, but what I will say is look for organizations that are involved in the things that you're doing. So if you're in marketing, I know there's the American Marketing Association. If you're in advertising or interested in advertising, there's Ad Club. There's ones for pretty much everything, ranging from, I think about like accounting to be a CPA. It's not required to be an accountant, but it shows that you have the industry knowledge set forth by other accountants. Um, so just look for things like Graphic Design Association or groups for graphic design or whatever it may be, and they will probably have the resources needed to look for different accreditations.
Thank you. It's good to be in a field though where there is so many options, right? Because some majors are so siloed. It's like you have one and only one choice.
Yeah.
So I just like to point that out, because sometimes it can feel overwhelming. It's a good overwhelming. You have options. You can tailor what works for you. Taylor Walker asked, for areas like the About page or the description of your work throughout your portfolio, how do you make these areas unique and as personable but still professional?
Yeah, that's tough because you don't know who is viewing your portfolio. If it's a thing like a dedicated email like we do, it's easy to customize things um, based on, what we know about your first name or your interests or whatever. For a professional portfolio, you can, if you can write a short blurb that's creative, that's great. Um, I definitely think lean on the side of professionalism, um, unless there's just something so specific that you're doing. Um, I think about like if you're only applying to, if you know for sure you want to work in the nonprofit industry, tailor your information a little bit to nonprofit. But there may be other things like, hey, I only want to work in the entertainment industry. And that may be a little bit more fun where you can tailor your things towards, big entertainment companies like Disney or Pixar, that are of course professional. They're still a business, but they kind of have this fun persona. So same things for sports, right? If you know you're only going to apply in sports and you only want to work in sports, you may be able to write something in that about section that's a little more sports oriented that may connect with me or whatever department is hiring, or whatever team. But as an overarching rule, I say lean on the side of professionalism. without, copying things, make it your own.
And with sports specifically, kind of off topic a little bit from the portfolio, Landis, but when you work for a sports organization in a communications role or PR or something related, how often are you required to stay for games after? Because the games are typically at night, right, during the work
Yeah.
week. How often are you required to stay in addition to maybe your 9 to 5, so to speak? Are they hours adjusted, et cetera?
Yeah, so I'm very flexible with my department. If we know we're going to have to stay late for a game, come in late when it's possible, or leave early the next day. For us personally, it's probably 5 to 10 games a year where we're required to stay because we're telling a story or inviting media to cover a story that is something unrelated to the game. So we're here as long as they're here. For other departments, I think of our sales department. They are here every game because they're checking in on their season ticket members. They're talking to people on the concourse about, are you having a good time? Would you be interested in coming to some more games? Have you thought about being, a half season ticket member, or a quarter season ticket member, or things like that? Um, and sales is a great way. I will say, at the Thunder, we have a great inside sales program that is for anybody. If you're interested in sales or you're interested in sports, our program is like a 2 year, up to 2 year program where you're really learning the ropes of sales, and you may decide that is not for you. But if like sales is something you're interested in, check out inside sales programs of sports teams.
Cool. Thank you. Keep the questions coming in. We got a few more, but I'll just kind of prompt it again. And then also, audience, if you want to raise your hand to ask, you're welcome to do that, and we'll enable your mic and camera. There's a hand that says raise below it in the upper middle. So just click that and it'll put you in an automatic queue to come on camera and ask your question. Melissa had the next question, Landis. She asked or stated, the reason I have not started a portfolio is lack of experience in my field. How can you make a portfolio look good if the only experience you have is with assignments?
Yeah, so I used my assignments, which is, all the more reason to, put in your effort, best effort on those assignments. I used things from my undergrad degree that I wrote for our campus newspaper and yearbook. We were even, write a sample press release, or here's a graphic design assignment, or whatever the case may be for your major. But that's exactly what I used because, especially things that got a good grade. Obviously, I wouldn't be putting anything up that maybe got an F on that assignment, but um, using those things in class because it shows that you're doing the work and you understand, um, what's happening and what was asked of you. Just like if I asked one of my employees to write a press release, or a feature story, or whatever it might be, that's the similar situation. So anything you use in class is a portfolio. Um, I also say my students ask all the time about not having experience. This is easier for this example in social media for those that want to get into a full-time social media role. Go to a neighborhood restaurant, go to a small mom and pop restaurant that you love, especially if you know they don't have social media, or they're not very active on social media, or you see they're not very good at social media, and just ask to do it. I've had students go out and do that. Hey, I'll do it for free. I just want to gain some experience. And then you can have some real world examples of, I helped this restaurant
Yeah.
build their social media portfolio and following by 100%. And you have example posts that get good engagement. And it's an easy way to, maybe get some free food.
Yeah. Side bonus though. That's so awesome though, as an example. You're so right. It's opened so many doors. This virtual world, the social media world for sure. And the same Daisy just mentioned it, web redesigns too.
Yeah.
If you that's
Yeah.
a skill. I mean, it's
Bad
kind of off
websites,
topic, but yeah.
bad flyers. I mean, anything. I mean, anything. And like I said, if it's a small mom and pop restaurant that you love, they might, they probably give you some free food, or at least a
Yeah.
discount.
Yeah, I know I did some articles when I was an undergrad just a freelance gig. So different, but to your point, half of them offered you free food when you went in. So it's a bonus. Um, Jason, I appreciate Jason's question. And Melissa, yeah, no problem. Thanks for asking that question. Jason said, well, what do you do with no work experience to kind of get started? And so that's a little different, I think, right, than like adding school experience to your portfolio, which was the answer to the previous question. But like, what did you do, Landis? Like, how do you start getting that experience?
Yeah, so I mean, again, everything's an experience, and volunteering for things is an experience. So if there's a nonprofit or other, I think of things like museums, there's museums all over the place volunteering at those organizations if your schedule allows, um, to gain some experience. And then as you get to know the organization, you might be able to say, hey, I do this. Can I help maybe work on this flyer or this event or whatever it may be. Um, but then also think about the experiences you've had in the past, whether it's waiting tables or working as a cashier or whatever. Again, I tell my students like waiting tables is in kind of a twisted way, public relations, um, because we are building a client base. We're creating those connections. It's transferable skills, exactly. So thinking about what you have done and extracting those transferable skills into what you're trying to get into. Um, again, volunteering in any way possible. And because if you keep coming back and keep showing up and showing that you're doing the work, there's a lot more opportunity there and a lot more trust to then be able to say, hey, can I try some social media? Or I'm interested in graphic design. Can I design this year's t-shirt for your fundraiser or things like that?
I think the theme is like experience is experience is experience, no matter whether it's paid or unpaid, right? Like you were saying earlier with the classroom work too. That's great. I love that. I forget how exactly you said it, but like great. That is your experience,
Yeah.
classroom work. So that's good.
And that's exactly what we expect. I mean, if you're applying for entry level role or whatever, we as hiring managers know you're not going to have 10 years of PR experience. We just want to look and see what you had done as a student. And, um, we do a lot of writing on my team. So I want to see in your cover letter or portfolio that your writing is, what it should be.
I think too, thank you for bringing up like, understanding that folks may be green and they may not have worked in the field before. See that as a plus if you're applying as an applicant, students or alumni for a position, because oftentimes like hiring managers may see that as well. They're not going to come in with 5, 10 years experience saying, well, at my last company, we did it this way or we did it this way. Like classwork is work, but there's more of that mindset on the company side of like they may feel like they're going to be more easy to work with you because you don't come in with those preconceived notions. Am I off on that, Landis, or is that accurate?
No, and two things I think of. One, our director of social media always says, I would rather hire somebody that doesn't have any sports experience because I've seen they can be creative and do engaging social media work. We can teach you basketball, we can teach you the way that we do things here, but if we see you've been creative for another industry or another platform, that's something we look for as well. And then the other thing I think of is this example works for broadcasting, sports broadcasting, but you can make your own examples. People who are interested in sports broadcasting, I say, mute your television, turn on a tape recorder or your iPhone, recorder, I guess now, and broadcast. Do your own commentary and submit that as a reel. It's not, professional experience, but it shows your skills. So that can be done. I go back to PR because that's my, industry. Um, Write a fake press release, write a fake news article, whatever it may be, create your own examples. Um, One, it helps you get better, and two, it shows that you have the skills that those industries are looking for.
Um, do you have peers review that work too?
I It certainly doesn't hurt, especially a resume and cover letter, somebody that you know is great at looking for typos. Um, as far as a portfolio goes, I had professors look at stuff or, ask if this was a good example that I should include. But I see the question here about deciding what to put on your portfolio so it isn't overwhelming. Um, you know, Pick your best 3 or 4, and that's what you post. I mean, if you're, creative writing or whatever it is, and you've got 10, 12, 15 pieces, pick your best 3 or 4 and go with that. And then if people ask for more, you can always have another link to say see more. And if people are interested, then they can go see more. But, really highlight what you think are your best, probably top 4, 5 at the most examples of whatever the category may be.
Awesome. Got Dana submitted one in the chat. Before I get to that, there was one that came through a bit ago. You answered it. So Tumblr works, and the other half of the question, because you addressed WordPress and other like more formal, I'll call it, like platforms. Are there any unprofessional portfolio sites in your opinion, Landis, that you would stay away from?
None that come to mind or that I've seen. Social media is not in itself a platform unless it is a specific, you know, this is my Instagram for business. Check out the things I've done for other businesses on my Instagram. But if it's mixed with your personal Instagram posts, then it's not a portfolio. So, no domains that come to mind, but social media, Facebook is not a portfolio.
Great. Melissa and Dana, thanks for the additional questions. Keep everything coming through for sure. You guys are doing great in the chat. Keep it. Landis is going to need to drink a lot of water after this. So we accomplished our goal. Raise your hand too if you'd like. That option's at the top. So next question is from Dana. For someone working in the sports industry, do you want? Sorry, it went away. Do you want to see specific works like press release, podcast, script for a commercial? What would be most relevant?
Yeah, so there again, that's where you might tailor to the job you're applying for, or like on mine when I linked, you'll notice I have different buttons. When you click sample work, it's not just one page. It's, hey, do you want to see my videos or my writing or my sports announcing or whatever, so that obviously you can't tailor to every application because it may be a week or two before somebody goes to look at your portfolio. So it's not like you can switch it over to the next job you've applied for. So I would say, think about what you're applying for and maybe create different sections so that, if I'm looking for somebody to do a lot of writing, that I can click on your writing tab, or if I'm looking for a broadcaster, I can click on your broadcasting tab.
Thanks. Got about 5 questions came through, so that's awesome. So outside of your, the question was outside of our work or projects, what else should be in our portfolio? A personal statement, awards, honors?
Yeah, personal statement doesn't do a lot for me. And certainly not on a resume because it takes up too much space. When you're trying to keep your resume to 1 page or 2 at the most, if you've been, in the industry a while. Awards and honors are great because it shows me or hiring managers that your work or your personality have been recognized by other industries. And I would then, as a hiring manager, go look and see, oh, this organization honored this person with this award or this honor. Like, what does that entail? What did they have to do? So I may take the time to go look and see what that is. But yeah, honors and awards are great. You'll notice if you looked at mine on my about page, I just have a little bit of like my third sentence is something like, I'm always on the hunt for like the best burger and jazz music or something like that. and a little sentence about ask me why the government told me to stop working so much or something like that. And I do occasionally, when I get LinkedIn connections, say, hey, I saw you at this thing and I checked out your portfolio. Like, why did the government ask you to stop working so much? So it's there's a chance to connect with people there if they're viewing your portfolio quite a bit.
I am a burger connoisseur myself, so now you have me hungry, and
Yeah.
it's dinner. Where's the best one in OKC? Tell us.
Oklahoma City, if you're ever here, got a couple of options. There's Nick's, which has been around a long time. That was on Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives the first season. It's also a great place that opened up a couple of years ago called Spark. It's right next to the arena, so within walking distance. So it's a problem. It's when it first opened, I called it the knockoff Shake Shack.
Yeah.
Until I went back to Shake Shack and realized it's better than Shake Shack. So, yeah, those are the two best here.
That's awesome. It's a problem.
Yeah.
That's not. Daisy had the same question I did, so thank you, Daisy. I'm not
Yeah.
alone. Behance was brought up twice by Taylor and Sharon. Never used it before. Would you use this as a in your portfolio? And Taylor was asking specifically about for a position in graphic design.
Yeah, so I've heard the name, but I didn't know much about it. I'm looking at it right now as we're talking. Yeah, I think this could be great. I don't know that I would use it as my full-on portfolio because it looks like this is kind of a like a Fiverr situation where I'm looking to hire somebody. Which if you're going freelance, that's fine. Like go for it. But if if you're looking for corporate work or nonprofit or whatever, something not freelance, certainly an option.
I
If you're
put you on spot there. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, no, you're fine. If you're looking for something specifically, I see like, oh, I'm looking for somebody who does motion graphics. So if you know specifically what you want to get to is motion graphics, um, that may be a place to go. Um, but I also see things on here like how many projects have been completed by that person, people who have said followers and project views. So if you don't have a lot of project views or followers, while it may be good for a link for a portfolio, if you're looking at freelance work, if I see you have, you know, very few views and very few projects completed, then I'm, less likely to hire you over somebody, or in that regard, over somebody with experience if I'm looking for a one-off kind of freelance graphic design thing.
Thanks. So this question came through, and I just wanted to make sure that we're clarifying and clear on it. It was from a graphic design student. Two-parter. The first one, I'll ask the first part first. How much of a portfolio should be about me, and how much should be about my work?
So I would say 10 to 20% about you. 30% maybe. You'll notice on mine, I have like a little about page and how people can connect with me. I also certainly have a place for my resume. I mean, your resume should always be part of your portfolio. And then the rest is my work and examples. And so when I was applying for a job, when I got into state government, my portfolio link was on my resume. My resume is on my portfolio, and then I can also easily show off. I brought my laptop to the interview, and just had it to say, they were looking for things with video work, and so I was able to just pull up and go, here's a video I've done.
Awesome.
This is what reminds me of something that I've done, so I can just show it right there.
I'm good. Noel, thanks for your hand too. We'll get to the hand question in just a minute. But I'm glad that you brought up the laptop to the interview, Landis, because like you could bring your phone, I feel like, and that's acceptable if they're asking to show work. A lot of creative work can be shown on cell phones, but like laptop would be more you could show more probably, and that's okay nowadays, especially right in the creative space.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think so. I would also say, bring nice printed
Yeah,
copies of your resume or your cover letter, or in the case of graphic design, maybe a nice kind of spiral bound thing that you can get printed at FedEx or whatever.
right.
At I don't think they call it Kinko's anymore, FedEx office.
Yeah.
Um, so having those hard printed examples, but like I said, in the case of videos or motion design, you're going to have an iPad or some electronic thing to show off those examples.
Thank you. That's good. The second part of that question, then we'll get to Noelle's, who has their hand raised. And this is just to clarify, really, um, portfolio is different than resume, right? Like you wouldn't include your resume in your portfolio. Portfolio is strictly like samples of work and links and everything like that, right?
Yeah, and I use portfolio as the broad term for my website. You'll notice my resume is a separate tab from what I'm calling sample work, but it's still on there because that's an easy way to show people what you've done and kind of your experience in that regard.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. Good to have the percentage too, by the way, on, about you versus your work. So forget who asked that question, but thank you for that. Noelle, we'll get to you. I'm going to allow your microphone should be enabled and your camera if you want to go on camera, and feel free to ask your question.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. My question is, I'm a graphic design student online through SNHU. I was just wondering, when you're uploading your work on the website, do you need to accompany it with captions, like explaining the process behind the work, or is it more just on visual, or you're relying on visuals?
Helps if I unmute. Great question. I think I wouldn't say captions are required. It depends on how much context you need to put around the project. So, for example, in my video tab, I kind of explain what the videos are because some were, specifically what a client asked for. They just needed somebody to do the work. Some were left up to my own creative direction. Some were, hey, this is the footage we have. We need you to edit it together. And so providing that example to say, hey, I didn't film this footage. They just asked me to edit this video. Or this is specifically what they asked for. They just needed somebody to do the work. That can provide some good context around those projects, but I wouldn't say it's required as a hardline rule.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Noelle. Awesome. Anybody else wants to raise their hand, feel free to do that. And Noelle, thanks for taking advantage of that option. I have I'm intrigued by a couple questions that came through. Tamara McMillan asked, I'm a creative writing major and I have some publishing experience that is from early 2000s. So for the sake of this question, let's just assume that Tamara and anybody else, like let's say that you had experience from forever ago in a certain industry. Can and should you put that in your portfolio, or would you leave it out?
I would say you can use it. There is certainly nothing saying you have to date that work. I don't think. If I do, I need to take it down to say a date of, hey, this was published this year. You can just say published in X magazine or book or article or whatever. Some of it's easy to connect the dots. I think I have examples still up of I did this during my time at Harding or Texas Tech, so you can kind of date that if need be. If you're connecting the dots between a resume, but again, if it's the experience you have, use it. And like I said, there's definitely nothing that says you have to put published in 2002 or 2006 or whatever, if it's a good example of your work.
Thanks. Allegra Barnes asked the next question. What's the best way to grab a recruiter or hiring manager's attention with the portfolio?
That's a tough one, because what's probably grabbing their attention is your resume or your cover letter. I'm not looking at your portfolio first. I'm looking at your resume that you submitted. And then if I want to know more, or maybe after a first round interview, I'm going to do a deeper dive into your portfolio. So resume first, as far as capturing attention. Portfolio, I would just say, kind of try to find your brand, whatever that may be. So, if it's a cohesive user experience, I mean, when we think about websites that we like to use, look at those examples and think about what's easy to use. Unless you're a web design person, we are limited in the design experience by whatever WordPress or Weebly gives to us. And so as long as it is fairly clean looking and cohesive, I don't know, that there's one thing or even multiple things that can be done to say this portfolio really stood out, because it's about I'm looking at the work. I'm not necessarily looking at what color did they use in their header, or what font are they using here or there.
Thank you. Great. We have 10 minutes left roughly, so feel free to keep the questions coming. Landis, you've answered about 15, so that's awesome. One on social media. So the question is, I want to become a social media manager. If you were seeking a social media manager, what qualities or attributes would stand out to you?
Yeah, so one, that you can spell. Two, that you're, creative in your posts. This goes back to, I don't have social media experience. You can, hate to say fake it, but if those restaurants say no, if whatever, creating examples of what you might post, especially if you're applying for a certain industry. So you can look at things like, Tuesday was National Food Day. So if you're applying for nonprofit sector jobs, how could you tie in a nonprofit into National Food Day, or building these kind of fake examples of, hey, it's National whatever Bison Day. Building these, hey, here's what I would post if I worked for you on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Threads, Snapchat, TikTok, whatever. Pick a couple of platforms, and create that experience for yourself in the name of, those examples.
Awesome. I think it's important too with social media to know, like you said, what platform or platforms work most for you and not spread yourself too thin, right? So to kind of become an expert at your craft on one or two platforms.
Yeah.
Whatever makes the most sense. We have a question from Sophie here. Would it be better to have your portfolio include a broad range of work if you are unsure about what field you would like to go into, or would it be best to modify your portfolio based on the position you are applying for at the moment? Apologies if this question was asked before. I don't think it was totally, so.
No. So I guess you have options. If you really wanted to modify and be hyper specific, you could create hidden pages that are landistindell.com/marketing/public relations/social media. If you wanted to send people to a specific page that outlined that experience. I would say though, like you see on mine, which is not the perfect example, but I found it worked for me, is creating the tabs, because oftentimes, example in corporate communications where I am now, I am looking for writing experience, maybe some graphic design, or in other cases, not here where I am now, but where I've been before, maybe I need some photography experience, or maybe not need. I can take pictures, but it would be great if the person I'm hiring to write could also take pictures in case I can't be there. So then I can see, oh, you've got a photography side of things. I'm going to look at that and see how it goes. And so you'll see on mine, I've got all sorts of stuff on there because I was the same. I didn't know. I was a PR major, but all of my outside of class experience was in video production and broadcasting, and I didn't know which route I wanted to go professionally, so I just put it all on there. So yeah.
Thank you. It's good to have that broad range and those options and make sure all your bases are covered. So appreciate that answer. Daisy asked, thank you, Daisy. This is an awesome question. Are there any legal considerations for freelancing? If I wanted to start a small business, I have to jump through hoops. Are there hoops for freelancing?
I will assume it's a state by state basis, based on what laws are in the state. My quote unquote freelancing business is not really, it's friends asking me, hey, I know you edit videos, can you edit this for me? Or hey, I know you take pictures, will you come photograph this event? I'm not actively promoting my expertise as a service. If that's something you are going to do and you start to earn, more than a couple $1,000s a year on your services, it would probably be in your best interest to register yourself as an LLC or whatever, your state requires for freelancing, just so you don't get in trouble with taxes and things like that. But state to state, I'm sure it varies, and most states have, a small business division of state government, or some place that can help you decide what's the best thing for you.
Thanks, Landis. Daisy, yeah, great question. Thank you, Daisy, because that you gotta be careful and leave no stone unturned and just cover yourself. So I appreciate that question, Daisy. Melody asked, and this is somebody who is interested in script writing for podcast intros, commercials, etc. Is there anything specifically, Landis, that if you were hiring for those, you'd look for someone that's interested in the behind the scenes production, like script writing or podcast interviews?
Anything specific? Yeah, so nothing that comes to mind because I haven't done a lot of that work. There again, it's tailored. If you are seeing job postings that are like, hey, this interests me, that sounds really great, and you're seeing a lot of them, then start trying to find work or tailoring your work to those applications. A lot of podcasts probably aren't super scripted. There are some that are written out, and I think about like um some of these murder podcasts or whatever, they're true crime, they're telling stories, they probably scripted how they're going to frame the story. It's not just a conversation like kind of the Kelsey Brothers podcast that's popular now, is where they're just having a conversation and they might have two or three high level things that they want to hit on. So just be looking at job descriptions of the things that you're interested in, and then start tailoring your stuff to that.
Awesome. Thank you. We'll ask this last question and then we'll conclude from Justin Dunlap. Overlooking work quality, Landis, is there anything on a portfolio that would raise red flags for anyone interested that should not be a part of the portfolio?
That's a good question. I would say, anything not related to your work. So on your portfolio, I don't want to see like your personal Instagram feed of your vacations at the beach, or shots of you doing, shots of you doing shots, or whatever, anything that isn't related to your professional experience. Um, that's really the only thing I can think of. Hopefully your portfolio is work-based examples, and you're going from there.
Thanks for that question, Justin, and the answer, Landis. Awesome stuff. We will conclude. Thank you all so much. This will be up on the career YouTube page in a couple, probably tomorrow. I'm not going to jinx it. Let's say 2 to 3 days. The goal is tomorrow. And Landis also on the Passion and Practicality podcast recorded a session recently with us. That's not on that page yet, but it will be in a month or two. So you can look out for Landis there as well. But thank you all for attending so much. Landis, we'll give you the floor if there's anything you'd like to say in closing before we wrap up.
Yeah, I would just say, reach out if you have questions. I saw a question in there about how we can get an internship with the Thunder. Check our careers page. We post stuff there all the time, or any sports team near you. If you're not in Oklahoma City, we're probably not going to hire you as an intern, because that would make it very difficult to commute from wherever you are. But connect with me, reach out if you have questions, and I appreciate y'all for being here.
Thanks so much, Landis. Everybody have a good night.
Thank you.